We are back. We took a little break, about a week and a half or so. Welcome back. We're back. Two fans, one Paul. Myself, David Quist, lovely co-host, rocking his Michigan gear, rocking his Natty Champ hat and shirt. I think it's you guys are gonna go on a little downswing here, I think, but we'll see what happens. How
I'm
you
sure you
feeling?
hope so.
I sure do. But how you doing, KB? We haven't talked. I mean, we've been texting, but we haven't talked like we usually do every week. How you doing? How you feeling? And we'll jump into all the news over the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, ups and downs. Obviously, was finally got all my. Honestly, my wife ordered this for me, so I was very thankful for her. Shout out to Nat the goat. She ordered this stuff for me because like I was just unwilling to pull the trigger because I was like, God, like I know I need some, but I just like look at that, and we just got done with the holidays and stuff. But just so happy with everything, how everything kind of turned out. Obviously, we have a ton of breaking news, a ton of stuff to cover in today's podcast that we'll get kind of rambling and rolling on. And then, we got so much stuff coming up. We got draft stuff. The Lions are still in the playoffs. I didn't think I'd
Grit,
ever be able
baby.
to say that.
Grit.
Yeah, so I mean, it's nice to be a Michigander, someone from the Michigan side. But with that being said, unless you have anything else, I mean, the second biggest story I think this offseason, but maybe the most impactful overall for football, is Harbaugh leaving Michigan,
Hmm.
going to the Chargers.
Yeah, KB. We talked about this middle of the season. I'm not surprised. He's been teasing. He had an interview with the Minnesota. I can't remember who it was before that. That was 2 years ago. So he's always been kind of looking. I think he wants to get a Super Bowl and beat his brother. So that's kind of a cool story. I hate Harbaugh. I do think he's a football guy. I give him that respect. I just think he's weird. Um, I think Jonathan Smith is a football guy too. He seems a little more like he can talk. Harbaugh, I just don't know how players follow Harbaugh, but he gets shit done. He won a natty. He was a solid, and he was an okay NFL quarterback, and he obviously played quarterback at Michigan. So, it was kind of going to happen too with NCAA kind of breathing down his neck, and kudos to him for winning the natty. I think Sharon Moore should be the next coach at Michigan. I don't know if any other dominoes have fallen for Michigan of players leaving or whatnot, but we've been on this KB for the last 6 or 8 weeks. We kind of aren't too surprised. Um, yeah, good for him. Kind of curious to see how the Chargers does. He's good with quarterbacks for the most part. So he's got Herbert. The NFL is kind of rounding out their coaching searches. Belichick is still out there, which I find interesting. But yeah, Harbaugh is with the Chargers, and maybe he plays against his brother in a. I don't know. I always get up divisions mixed up, but maybe he plays his brother in a championship or the Super Bowl again, which would be kind of crazy.
Yeah, they're both in the AFC, so they could only play in the championship again.
Okay,
But yeah, I mean, it sucks. I know a lot of
obviously.
Michigan faithful. I mean, they wanted him to come back. Sounds like it was just the contract negotiations. He was leaning there, and then the more he kind of heard from the Chargers, he's leaning there. By the end of it, but that's also like lawyer speak and kind of just all that stuff. So we none of that's necessarily confirmed from what I've read. It sounds like he was basically the big sticking point in the contract, and the argument that was kind of hung everything up is that he didn't want to be able to get fired for cause and lose all of his money if the NSA fired him for something that they already knew, is what I read. And so like, hey, you guys met with NSA in the Big Ten. They told you everything they have on me. If you want to rehire me, sign me on a contract. I get suspended for a year. You can't say, oh, well, because they suspended you for a year, we're not going to fulfill the contract, because
Hmm.
it's like you already know this. And that sounds like that didn't kind of get applied to the contract until Harbaugh was basically already a Charger. But I wish him well. I mean, he did what I honestly didn't think possible. I was in the camp that I wanted him gone after the 2020 season. I'm really surprised that they stuck with him. Just with how poorly the program looked from a culture perspective, they didn't look like they wanted to play. And over the course of the last 3 years, he's built monsters. He has invested, and he has built a fantastic football culture that kind of has been a whirlwind for a Michigan fan. This is what a lot of the people that were fans when I was younger growing up with was able to feel in the 90s and 2000s, where like success was just automatic, and you ground teams down, you play really elite defense. So that's good for him. I double what you said with I'd love Sharon
Hmm.
to kind of stick. It'll be interesting to see what happens in the portal, because no one has entered the portal currently, but we all know how tampering happens. How as soon as a coach leaves, Coaches are contacting recruits. It's illegal. The NCAA doesn't give a shit. And it happened with like Caden Proctor, we heard, happened with people who are crystal balled before they ever even enter the portal. We know that they're in talks for probably weeks, which is a shitty thing. It's very difficult to kind of maintain a core, but it looks like the players love Sharon more. I would love him to get a chance, to continue on. I think that if that happens, I've also heard Jesse Minter is going to be leaving the DC.
And his
He's
kid,
going to
right?
follow, and Jay, yeah. They're both going to follow him out west. I think for the OC position and the DC position, they should look outside. I don't know who that is. But when you have someone impactful leave and someone as important as Jim Harbaugh, and you're trying to kind of maintain a semblance, you can't get stuck with not branching out and bringing any new blood in. I think that could definitely hurt the team, could definitely hurt the balance. Not bringing anyone in, which almost seems counterintuitive, but you need fresh blood to kind of rejuvenate, to see that it's your own team, it's a staff that you put together and built. Because if any other OCs or DCs leaves, that's Sharon Moore's job now, is to fill in those replacements along with his AD. But outside of that, I'm still excited for everything. I mean, things could go off a cliff. Obviously, a lot of people left in the draft. Some key guys came back. I think the defense is going to be great, but we'll see
Yes.
kind of how all of that rolls down. We're going to have plenty of time to talk about it.
Hmm.
But
I do have
outside of that,
something.
I mean, yeah,
You kind of talked about it in 2020. I'm pretty sure. I think I listened. It might have been. I don't know if it was Keith Nickel on a podcast. He's a state guy, but it sounded like Harbaugh when you got. I think it was it 2020 or was it 2019 where you were. It might have been 2020 when you guys were almost losing to Rutgers in the first half. I heard
no, I
that.
mean,
Huh?
2020 Michigan was in double OT with Rutgers.
I heard that like they
And
were on the like brink of firing him that game, like in the middle of the game because they were. I could be
yeah, I mean,
wrong.
they definitely could have. They cut his pay following the next year. And then it changed more into a bonus structure, and then he won the Big Ten and
Yeah.
went to the playoffs. So I mean, there's a lot of things there. There's kind of a testy Ward Manuel, um, obviously, the AD of the program. He's lost Bakich, he lost Beeline, he lost Harbaugh, and he had the whole entire hockey fiasco and the all-time program leader for softball all have left under his
Oof.
watch.
Oof.
Now whether that's all because of him, his fault, or if it's donors and alumni wanting different, or like the coaches themselves, like Beeline just wanted to go to the NBA, and Bakich, obviously Clemson makes money, Michigan doesn't from a baseball perspective.
Yeah.
So that's one of those things. But he is not tenured over a great set. Oh, also made the Juwan Howard hire, which is turning out to
He's
be
gone.
an abysmal situation. So yeah, not a great look from your AD there, but overall, I'm not too, like I said, I'm not upset with Harbaugh. I think I wanted him back. I wish he would have stayed. I wish he would have been satisfied with enough with the national championship, with being the guy at Michigan,
Mhm.
because he's just going to be another dude in LA. No one
Absolutely.
cares about the Chargers in LA. There aren't fans. No one gives a shit on a national stage about them. No one in your city is going to come and be a huge Chargers fan. You
I still
you
can't
you
believe
see
that
what
they need to go
happens.
back to San Diego. It's just like it's so dumb.
Yeah, I mean, you see what happens when the Rams go play San Francisco, and it's basically a home game from San Francisco,
Mhm.
and the home team, the Rams, have to go with the silent cadence. No one gives a shit about football in LA. Um, but
Facts.
with all
Facts.
of that being said, I know he's a competitor, and I know that to solidify himself as maybe one of the all-time greats, if he can win a Super Bowl and a college football national championship, do it at
Mhm.
two levels. I mean, he's already a great coach, but I think that's the fighting tenure in him. And
Yeah.
obviously with NIL, it's been difficult to kind of manage those, responsibilities.
Yep. I would agree with everything. I mean, he's already got two Super Bowl. He didn't win it, but he got there. And I will say, I don't know why Michigan just hasn't announced more as the head coach. I know they're probably going to search, but I think you should have done it right away. Just have that continuity, or that's not even a word, but just continue
Continuity.
continuity. English baby college to show the players and the program and alum that hey, this is our guy. He did a good job when he had to step in. I saw a short list. Number 2 was a guy from down south that I know you don't want to see there,
No,
but
don't even say his
I
name.
won't.
Don't say
He's a
his name.
Laker. I'll say that he's a Laker. His name is down the road from me, about 5-10 minutes on a building. But yeah, that's a short list. But if it's me, I'm pulling the trigger on Moore. That's our guy. He did a great
Yeah.
job when we needed him. I don't know if he might be a little more gun shy
So
than Harbaugh,
there's
but
a
that's
reason
my.
why.
Oh, okay.
It's state required that they have to wait 7 days to appoint
Oh,
anyone to a
okay.
public position
Oh
after
yeah, because
firing.
the highest public paid
Yep.
person in the
And
state.
they submitted a request to kind of like forego that. But I mean, it's 7 days. The hope is that everyone in the program knows it, so the players don't kind of leave or even jump into the portal just to see what money they can get. Because there's still a lot of good players, especially in that defense that could go elsewhere. I'm just thinking of Mason Graham, who's a Cali kid. Thinking of Kenneth Grant, who has or Indiana ties. Some of those other programs could snatch him away, but hopefully, they stick together. Michigan did. We'll get to that, but the next big thing that I mean, we were days away. Kind of good on the Harbaugh stuff. DeBoer at Alabama.
Yep. I mean,
What are your thoughts?
I think Saban retiring, it was just a huge domino effect. Saban retires, and then DeBoer from Washington, who was just in the championship game, goes to Bama, which is huge. And then because he leaves Washington, Jed Fish from Arizona, hot coach, goes to Washington. Surprisingly enough, Fafita and McMillan, the receiver quarterback combo, are staying at Arizona, and then Arizona gets, I think, San Jose's head coach or something. So, one guy, an icon in college football, one of the best, is a huge domino to fall, which leads to this and that, and then now we have DeBoer at Washington or at Bama. Recency right there. I think it's interesting. I don't know if the quarterback fits in that scheme. A lot of guys are in the portal. A lot of guys left. I think he's got his hands full. I think he'll be a good coach no matter where he goes. I mean, his record's outstanding ever since NAIA football. I just don't know if Bama fans will be patient, going 9-3 maybe for a year or two, or 10-2. But maybe right away he's in the thick of the SEC. I really don't know, but he's got his hands full. Saban's probably right behind him on the phone if he needs any help. But there was teams just showing that their coaches were staying. That might not even had a conversation. You had Texas showing Sark staying. You had Ole Miss showing Kiffin staying. So obviously, Bama has a lot of pull right now because they had a legendary coach for so long. But I'm curious to see if this makes them go down maybe one tick, which I don't know if fans down in the SEC will be okay with. But I like the hire. I think he's a good coach, but I don't know if they have the patience down there for maybe a slight step back, which is still 9 or 10 wins a year.
Yeah, I heard someone on a podcast call me Yankee, and it's just like those people haven't left. I mean, it's just hilarious hearing them talk about people from like north of the Mason-Dixon line. I mean, just incredible to hear them, figure that stuff out. And no respect to them. I mean, I don't disrespect Southerners, but the way they talk about people from the north, it's like, bro, the war ended so long ago.
Yeah.
But aside from that, yeah, DeBoer hasn't built a program anywhere he's gone.
It's really
Outside
interesting. Really interesting to see.
At the high end level, right?
Yeah.
Because he was at Indiana with Penix. He leaves Indiana with Penix to go be the head coach, and he inherits Jake Haener, who is a great quarterback. And then he goes to Washington and then gets Michael Penix in, who is a great quarterback. We all kind of knew that. So this will be one of those times where he's not necessarily inheriting a quarterback that fits into his
When
scheme.
was he at Eastern? 2018.
Yeah, I think it was 2 years before.
I mean, what? Kudos to him, dude.
It was 18, then 19, 20 at Indiana.
When did he go to?
Then
When was he at
21,
Fresno?
22.
He was at Fresno for a coordinator role too.
No, he was only at Indiana for 1 year, 2020.
Okay. I can't remember. I just know that he was at Eastern within the last 5 or 6 years, and now he's the head coach at
Yeah.
Bama. That is, I mean, good for him. I know you're kind of right. He hasn't really built a team for 4 or 5 years. But what a trajectory for a head coach to go from a coordinator at Eastern Michigan to Indiana to Fresno. I don't know. I think he went back to Fresno once, or I think he went Fresno, Indiana, Fresno. maybe there's a year in there between Eastern, and then he went to Washington, and now he's at Bama. Kudos to him. Really interested to see how he does with the SEC with all these expanded conferences.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing is they lost a lot of recruits. They lost a lot of wide receiver talent, and it wasn't already a super talented room compared to years past with all those guys that were sprinting around there, Judy and Ruggs, and so it's going to be interesting to see what he can bring in. I mean, a big part of it, and the thing I see is that like if you're a receiver, you want to go play in that system. He just had two first round draft picks, probably another second rounder. I know Jeremy Bernard entered the portal, but it'll be
He's
interesting
going
to
to
see
Bama.
what he can do.
He's going to Bama.
Is he?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, they confirmed
Former
that.
Spartan dog.
But quarterbacking wise, Milroe might stay for the spring. I'd be very surprised. That system, if it's going to be interesting, does that system translate and are they willing to adapt it? Because Milroe can't run the system how it was ran with Penix, but the overall system allows really deep passing plays and you have a good enough offensive run game, especially if you have a quarterback rushing attack, that you could. So it'll be really interesting to see how he kind of develops there. But like I said, he hasn't built a program anywhere. He's done really explosive things everywhere. And this is the top end job. This is a very difficult job.
Yeah.
And not only did you lose some offensive talent. You lost some defensive guys. You lost Ken Proctor. You lost Caleb Downs. You lost a bunch of guys. Both your cornerbacks are in the draft. You lost both your edge rushers to the draft. Like this is going to be a rebuild. I mean, I could even see them winning 8 games next year, 7 games, just because they lost so much and they've been getting pilfered through the transfer portal. All their depth, all their 5-star guys, they don't see the field for 2 years. Previously, if they had to transfer, they had to wait a year. And so they wouldn't, and then by the time they're a junior, it's the 6'4", 275-pound edge that puts up 10.5 sacks and goes in the first round again, because Alabama just does that. And now it's kind of a different narrative. And, they play a lot of tough teams next year. They have a Georgia game on their schedule. So it'll be interesting to see what happens and if they actually give him a chance to set his feet down. But then going Jed Fish, I mean...
Great hire. Just going to say it.
I think it's a great hire, and I think people in Arizona shouldn't be so mad. I still think
Arizona's athletic department is in shambles anyway.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. They have no money.
Yeah.
There's a hiring freeze in their athletic department. And people are like, well, why would he go there? And it's like, I can go to the Big Ten with way more money, way more resources, and live in Seattle instead of Tucson. And no disrespect to Tucson, but living in Arizona, I haven't been down there. I do want to get down there because there's some sites. But I've heard that there's some, maybe not the nicest city to kind of settle down and relax in. But it is surprising that McMillan and Fafita
are staying.
Both are staying.
Yeah.
However, I think the OC is staying, right? I think the OC didn't leave. I can't remember, but there's a connection there that I think they want to play it out. And I honestly, with all the talent that isn't leaving from Arizona, they have a chance to win the Big 12 next year.
They do.
With everything. So that's a really good hire. Who's the guy's name from
Let me look
you said
here.
San Jose?
Arizona
State?
football coach. I think so. Arizona head coach Brent Brennan today announced additional of etc. players, but I'm pretty sure it looks like they're going to sign Dino Babers, former Syracuse coach, as their OC as well.
Okay, nice. Yeah, so Brent Brennan, so all the best wishes to him. But just going back, there's a lot to replace up there in Washington. Like this is going to be almost a full, not rebuild, but a full kind of changing of guard there. The big thing that I look at is they lost their quarterback. They lost all of their good, not all of their good receivers, but yeah, all of their good receivers. I'll say that because they lost Jeremy too. And they lost some dudes in the secondary like Jabbar Muhammad, who's in the transfer portal, and some other really skilled guys. So it's going to be a task to kind of replace them. And this is one of the things with the transfer portal, and I'm not going to complain about it because I'm pro transfer portal, but a coach leaving kills programs now. There's no stability that is created in programs unless you're, I mean,
Michigan equals the playing field, I will say.
Yeah, I mean, the sustained success that we've seen at some places, like we saw at Ohio State, really no drop off. You could even see someone leaves, 30 players are entering the portal.
Yeah,
absolutely. Like even, I mean, Alabama lost 2 wide receivers that would have been their wide receiver 1 and 2 that probably would have put up 1,500 yards in the offense next year, and they left.
Mm-hmm.
even like they knew the coach was there and they still left because that NIL and the portal, and it's a completely different college football landscape now than even 3 years ago. It's absolutely bananas.
I would agree. Kind of curious to see how it shakes out. Washington could take a step back. I think Fisher's a good coach, so maybe he needs a year or two. I think Will Rogers is staying there,
Hmm.
so that's good for him. I know he entered the portal. I know Arizona's backup quarterback Delara. He committed to Texas State, and now he's uncommitted, not with the program. So I'm not sure what's going on with him. So a lot of moving pieces, a lot of guys in the portal because of these moves, and there's a long time. Obviously, there's a 30-day period once a coach leaves, and then there's going to be another period in the spring that's open for everybody.
Hmm.
So just keep your eye out on teams. I even think Ohio State might have guys leave because they signed a shit ton of talent. We'll talk about that in a minute, but really interested to see next year with Bama might being down, with Texas and Oklahoma joining the SEC. Washington's joined the Big Ten with a new coach. Obviously, Jonathan Smith as well from Oregon State, who's in a weird little conference. And then you got Arizona going to the Big 12 with a new coach from San Jose State. So a lot of moving pieces. And then Michigan, obviously, whatever they do. So really interested to see next year. I think with the 12-team playoff, all these coaches leaving, it really opens up the landscape. Obviously, you're still going to have Georgia and a couple other teams at the tippity top, but I think this really equals the playing field, and I'm looking forward to see, what my team can do with the new coach and all these teams kind of being
Yeah, a
questionable.
team.
Besides Ohio State probably being fucking amazing.
The one thing I like too is like you think of like Missouri where they were just on the outside looking in this year. They have like a really good chance to make the playoffs.
Yep,
Just with all the returning starters, Luther Burden and all those guys.
dog.
You look like you look at some of these teams that are returning some of these really high end talent and all the shakeup in the college football world with the portal. You look at how many players have left FSU, and it's like Miami's wide open to maybe make a run. I mean, we've been saying that for 15 years, but still, there's always a chance there because the boosters care. But it's going to be really interesting to see kind of how next year plays out. But we're still focused on the here and now. We still got the draft coming up. A lot of Michigan
Yep.
guys are going to be in the draft. I don't know how Sparty's looking in the draft or how many players or
Maybe a
where
couple.
maybe we'll see them. Sadly, I know I think they formerly had the longest streak of consecutive players
Yep.
drafted, and that broke I think 2 years ago, right?
Yeah, a
Or,
year or two ago. I can't
or
remember, but
last
yeah,
year.
we always had a couple guys. Had to be last year because Jaden Reed, I think, was drafted. No, Jaden Reed's a rookie, so 2 years ago, I think.
No, because Kenneth Walker. So it must have been after the 2020 season then.
Yeah, that we had a long streak going. That's true. Yeah, I know some guys declared. I'm trying to think who would get drafted. Maybe a lineman. I'm blanking, but I just remembered too. I don't know if we talked about it at all, but Malik Card transferred to Houston, I believe, tight end.
Oh, did he?
Yes, sounds like he deleted the tweet, but he said that they didn't want him. Which there was rumblings that he was late to practice and just kind of being lazy. And I think he could be a really good NFL tight end if he just knew that it's a job and treat it like that. But obviously, when you're in college, things are a little bit different. And they kind of got their tight end from Oregon State, so keep an eye on him. I think he's really good talent. And it sounds like they had a mutual conversation saying, "Hey, go do what you got to do here." I don't think I've said that before, but that's kind of news in the state realm. But besides that, I know there's guys that declared, but I can't think of anybody that's going to get drafted. They should have a couple guys maybe in the later rounds, but I can't think of anybody that's super high up there.
Gotcha. Yeah, hopping in, I guess this is the next point of topic, and then if we have anything else, we can kind of wrap up with talking some of the Michigan guys,
Hmm.
and maybe some draft things that you like, maybe a draft hot take if we want to drop some of those. So next week when we talk about it, we can have some more. But OSU's loading up, man. They opened the bag. Reportedly, they spent over $15 million
Jesus,
on their transfer portal class
C.J.
only.
Stroud put in like how much did you see? It's called like the
Hmm.
found. It's called the foundation. C.J. Stroud
Oh,
donated to the NIL collective. I think it's called the foundation or something like that. I don't know if it was 50K or 100K, but he threw in some money as well. First
yeah.
former player to do so, which is kind of cool.
So it is cool. I didn't see that, but that's awesome. So I mean, the first one, Quinshon Judkins, which we had talked about, but
Very good
Travion
running back.
Henderson staying is kind of the
Two-headed
there.
monster, man.
I think we're going to see a lot of two setbacks. I mean, I think they have the best two backs in the country at this point. Overall balanced on how they kind of run. They got McLaughlin, which is the Alabama guy, and a lot of people are clowning this. I mean, obviously Michigan fans remember him as the guy that couldn't snap the ball, but he played really well outside of snaps throughout this year. I think he got the yips or he got it in his head and he couldn't
Texas
snap.
and then Michigan, right? He had the yips for sure.
Yeah, and I think from what I've heard is that they're planning on maybe moving him to guard, beefing him up a little bit so he
Don't
doesn't
worry
have
about
to
the
worry
snap,
about
big
snapping
boy.
the ball.
Just block the
Yeah.
guy in front of you.
So he is a good blocker, was a good blocker. I think he just I mean, he started as a freshman, so I mean, it's just sometimes the yips happen and good thing for, centers is that there's position on the left side and right side that they can fill them in. They got Caleb Downs, who freshman All-American, probably a top, I mean, probably a top 30 player in college football already as a true freshman. He's flying
Impressive.
over the field. Um, they also got Denzel Burke to stay. They got JT Sawyer to stay, who I think was one of the guys that could have left. I really liked how he played down the stretch. JT Tuimoloau, I know there's a lot of hype, and when he's left unblocked, he's the best player in the country because he can just run at the football faster than anyone else. But when you put some people in front of him and get some guys on him, he's a little bit more college level. But when you leave him unblocked, like on a backside, if you try to bootleg it, he's killing you. If you try to run away from him without blocking him, he kills you. So he's really good at that. It's really just developing the one-on-one technique and getting some guys moving. They got another interior offensive lineman. They got Cody Simon, linebacker. I mean, Emeka Ibuka came back. A lot of these guys came
Who's
back, and
this Julian Sayin? He's a quarterback. He was at Bama. I'm assuming
yeah,
he's super young.
true freshman Julian
Okay.
Saint. So we're gonna see probably at least two transfers from that quarterback room.
And Will
Um,
Howard too. I mean, with that
Will
scheme that they
Howard's
run with
there.
those running backs and Will Howard being kind of athletic, that could be fun to watch. Early season, they're just gonna just destroy everybody probably because they play nobody. I don't know their
Yeah,
schedule, but the Big Ten.
it's they're out of conferences worse than Michigan's.
Yeah, I mean you guys play Fresno first game, so that's a kind of a tough. But
No, Michigan's last year.
oh yeah, okay, wow, so it's pretty weak. Um,
Yeah,
yeah, I'm really interested to see those running backs with they have Mbuka and obviously they always recruit really good receivers, and then they got a tight end from Ohio who's probably decent. But with those running backs and athletic quarterback and that knowing what Ohio State can do with an athletic-ish, obviously he's not Braxton Miller, he's not JT Barrett, but he still can move a little bit. And man, those teams are scary because you can never stop them on third and short. And if the quarterback can make a couple big throws in a game, watch out. They're going to put up 40 to 50 points every
yeah,
week. So, really interested to see how they use Judkins and Travion. I think Travion is a really good pass catcher too. So maybe he's in the slot more. And their defense was really good last year, and they just got better. So, um,
yeah.
if,
They
if if
also
Day
added
doesn't
Bill
win,
O'Brien.
if Day, yeah, I don't know if that's a good or bad hire personally, but if Day doesn't get a Big Ten championship at least this year, upcoming year, I think he might. I don't. Obviously, 10, 11 wins is good. Don't get me wrong, but Ohio State is kind of like Bama, where they might just say, we need to win the big game at this point. So, could be
Yeah,
make or break after loading up like this for them.
yeah. I mean, just a great team, and they've literally been for 3 years
One game
one
away.
win away. It's just one win, and that's how Michigan was for at 3 of the first 7 years of that rivalry. They're just one win away, and I mean, last year, not this year, but they were a field goal kick away from playing in the national championship, even with a loss to Michigan.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's just one of those things. I think these guys coming back, Ohio State fans always trolled Michigan over the course of the last 3 years of, oh, the only reason why you guys have people come back is because your players suck and they have to be fifth year seniors to even compete. But I want guys to stay and win and leave a legacy. I want guys to return and try to win a championship because maybe they're a fringe first rounder and they know, hey, if I have a great senior season, if I kick ass and we play in the Natty, I might get boosted to a first rounder and hey, I maybe might go to second, but I can boost myself and get up into the early second, or maybe I'm a fourth rounder. Let's see if I can get in a third rounder. So it's awesome to see those guys returning. I mean, not for a Michigan football perspective because they're good as hell, but for just a college football fan. Another key transfer, Caden Proctor. Obviously had some issues at times with pass protection, but true freshman in the SEC. He's going to Iowa. He was originally committed to Iowa.
Mm.
He decommitted and committed to Bama the last day, like on National Signing Day. So I saw a lot of people pissed, like I can't believe Caden Proctor left after Saban left. Why? Where's the loyalty? Like, he is loyal to you because you probably sent him a GD bag so he'd come down to see you. Just complete negligence of kind of anything there. But overall, it's just interesting to see how this all plays
He
out. I
was
haven't seen
originally
any
committed to
other.
Iowa. Is that what you said?
He was
Okay, so
committed to
kind of
Iowa
makes
until like
sense, right?
3 days before National Signing Day,
Okay.
and then he flipped his commitment to Bama. So
Okay.
I mean, who knows? I mean, maybe one of the guys came down there and was like, "Hey, we're gonna make sure you start," and that wasn't originally on the table, and so he's like, "Shit, I
Wait,
can start at
is he
Alabama as
still
a
at Bama
freshman."
then, or did he?
No, he transferred to Iowa.
Okay, that's what I thought. And that was
Yeah.
after Saban left. I'm assuming.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
A lot of
He,
moving
he's
pieces
he's
with
a
that one.
yeah he's officially at
Iowa.
Iowa, and
Okay.
they lost who's their wide receiver that made the really cool catch? I can't think of his name. Isaiah Bond. He's at Texas now.
Yep.
Um, But overall, I haven't seen any other transfers. That's obviously going to kind of slow down, and it'll pick back up again in the spring. Mostly because of two things. Coaches are now looking for transfers. That's a big thing. Is that when this time kind of passes outside of the top elite players, coaches aren't really looking
Find a
because this
dime in
is
the
the
rough. Find your
only
Kenneth Walker. Find that guy.
yeah. But this is kind of a time to relax for a few weeks before spring ball starts up. Um, And so we'll see spring ball starting up here in a little bit, which we'll have something to talk about. But that'll reopen the transfer portal once that's all done, and we can even talk about more of that. But it's
I have
been
a fun
absolutely
little
crazy.
tidbit. I have a fun little tidbit,
Okay,
KB.
I love tidbits.
I don't know
Give it
if
to
you're
me,
gonna
brother.
care, but the day it's kind of stupid, but it's funny. The day that Kenneth Walker officially signed with State was the day of the insurrection on the U.S. Capitol. So every time you think
Oh,
about the insurrection, think, hey, Michigan State found the running back Kenneth Walker. Kind of a crazy little thing. I saw Colton Pouncey, who worked for State, now works for the Lions, tweeted about it, and it's just kind of funny, crazy. Not a great day, obviously, for the USA, but we found our
great
guy.
day for MSU.
Yeah, we found our guy. So I just want to say that. I
No,
don't know what
that's
you're going to
funny.
say too. I was going to go over some rankings on the portal for teams too, and but if you have anything else you want to say, KB, go for it.
No, no, we're all good. I was going to talk about draft stuff if we want to
We can talk
keep
about that in a
hammering forward a
second.
little bit.
But yeah, I was
Yep.
just going to go over just the rankings quick where teams are sitting. Ole Miss is first. Obviously, they have 17 commits from the portal. Second is A&M. Then you got Florida State. Louisville's high up there too with 26 transfer guys. Wow.
Holy Lord.
Colorado is six with 23. Also, I saw a tweet today that they have a self-imposed year, I think, of a probationary period or something like that. Something with Dion's tweets, something with the portal and NAL. I don't know all the details. I just saw a quick tweet today about that. So if anybody wants to look that up, KB, or you want to read that later, we can always talk about that more next week. Texas, OSU, 7-8. Obviously, a lot of big teams. NC State's up there, and I just want to say at 18 we got MSU, so we're looking okay with 11 guys. Um, just want to bring that up. And there's a lot of other teams here and there, but it's good to see these teams using the portal. I still think you need to recruit to have that base. I think recruiting linemen is key, but now with the portal you need to
Hmm.
get those guys
Yeah.
to fill in those holes. I just want to bring that up quick and talk about Colorado. I don't know the details, but something's going on there for a year. For I think it's a self-imposed period.
Yeah, that sucks. I think we can also talk about the Florida stuff with the DJ Lagway situation, but I'd prefer that we kind of hold that off to next week just so that we can really do some research over the course of this week.
No
But
problem.
keep that on your guys' radar on kind of what we'll preview for next week. Um, but yeah, really interesting. Portal additions were key. I think that you can't build a team out of the portal. We saw that with
Agreed.
Colorado. You just don't get enough depth. But I think if you use the portal like Michigan did, where Michigan went into the portal, they got AJ Barner, who was a starting tight end. They got Josiah Stewart, who played starter level. They got Josh Wallace, who was a starter. They got a
Who's the
left
kid from
tackle
Coastal?
and Josiah Stewart,
He's
and
good.
he's returning.
He's
Yeah.
good.
And they got the left tackle Henderson, their center Nugent, and they also added Ernest Hausman. So they literally added a ton transfer portal wise, which I think they only added like eight, but all eight were super highly productive. They
Hmm.
all played key minutes and key, and that's kind of where you want your program to be. You don't want to be a top end. I got 25 transfers. Well, that means you don't have any depth. That means that you're trying to plug
Yeah.
depth holes and you're trying to, well, I can't start this true freshman versus like, well, I don't really want to start this junior. Can we find someone better?
I think
So I think that's. kind of what we're going to
Louisville
see the
having 26 is really interesting to me.
yeah, it's the second year of Brom. Obviously, Louisville played well last year. I think they're just loading up.
He
I don't
needs a
know what he's
quarterback.
telling people to come there, but it's going to be weird to see kind of how that all plays out because that's kind of a red flag for me.
Penny
When you
Boone.
have that many people in your second year, that reminds me of MSU, where maybe you have another breakout year, but it's hard to sustain success
Agree.
when it's so portal reliant.
He got a
But
quarterback. Sorry.
who'd they get?
Tyler Shoe, whatever how you say it.
No, the Texas Tech
You
kid.
got Penny Boone, and then they got Ja'Cory Brooks from Bama. So they got some decent guys.
Yeah, I mean it's definitely helpful, and I want to be clear. I'm not against it. It's just you got to use it like a medicine, and you can't just abuse it, right? Like you got to take it in dosages, or else it can become toxic because you have a guy that killed for your program for 3 years, and someone comes in for a mercenary contract for $250,000, doesn't really give a shit because they know they're going to the NFL maybe next year,
Yep, yep,
and implodes that team culture wise. So it's going to be an interesting balance to see where the culture and kind of that all lies and goes to.
yep. That's all I really have to talk about. We had a lot. We covered a lot with the coaching and the NAL. I know you want to talk a little about draft stuff. We can do that
Yeah.
quick to wrap up if you want. We won't go too long. Obviously, just a lot of news. And then we're
Hmm.
leading up to the Lions playing Sunday, and we're leading up to the draft in a month or two here, a couple months.
Yeah, so just draft wise, Donovan Edwards returned, which I think we kind of knew he didn't have the best of year, but definitely popped off late in the season. Um, there's a lot of guys. Michigan lost their entire offensive line, which will be interesting to see how they kind of pull together and reboot that. Roman Wilson, Cornelius Johnson, both gone. AJ Barner gone. Um, both edges, starting edges technically, although they played similar snap counts, gone. But Rod Moore and Makari Page, starting safeties, both returned, which is good news because both of those guys were great. And then obviously the big one outside of Corum leaving, JJ McCarthy leaving. Um, I'd have to assume he talked to teams before he did that and got, hey, we're looking at a first round grade, early second round grade for him to leave. Or else it wouldn't make much sense. Or maybe Harbaugh told him, yeah, if anyone offers me a job, I'm leaving, and that's kind of it. And he said, well, I don't want to be here if Harbaugh isn't here. But I'm excited for everyone. I think Michigan. Oh, Chris Jenkins also is a big one. But I don't know if Michigan will have a first rounder, which might be like the first time ever a national champion doesn't have a first rounder the
Wow.
following year. But Chris Jenkins
JJ,
could be JJ could be one.
he's
He's either
okay.
going
I don't
late
know.
first or early second, just in intangibles and upside. And then Chris Jenkins could be one. Zach Zinter probably would be one if he didn't snap his leg in half and health is a question. But those guys, they gave so much to the program, and it's going to be awesome talking about kind of their draft and what happens, and kind of where they end up. I don't know if you do this, Dave, but the best part about being a college football fan first, and then like just a Lions fan, I don't watch the NFL as much, is
Same.
whenever my team has players that go elsewhere, I like follow them. I like turn the game on. I'm like, oh, there's
I
three
mean,
Michigan players
Jaden
on here. Let
Reed,
me watch.
dog.
Yeah, dog. So it'll be interesting to see how all that comes out. But Michigan could have 13 or 14 players drafted, and a lot of that's going to be day two, day three, where a lot of those guys go. But a lot of really solid, really fundamental players, guys that put in time in the program and are just tough, competitive SOBs. So
Yeah.
unless you have any questions about that, Dave, I just kind of want to put that on everyone's radar. I was happy for JJ. I think he didn't need to prove anything else. Playing in that offense, right? What else are you going to improve other than 70% completion percentage, 4 picks, 20 touchdowns? Like,
He did what he had to do.
yeah. So it's going to
I
be
wanted to see
interesting to
what
see where
Corum
he gets.
does in the NFL for sure. He's a pinball. I mean, he's fast, but he's not like breakout speed. So I'm just curious to see where he
Yeah.
goes, see how he's used. If he's behind a good old line, he could run really well in the red zone, like he did for Michigan. I'm looking at a short list for NFL draft prospects for state, and I really don't know if this list is correct. I see Jalen Berger. I'm not sure. I don't know. I thought he was maybe staying, but we have like 8 guys on scholarship. I see Cal Holiday. I'm not sure. I'm assuming linebacker. I know one of our friends, Matt Neal, we all think he's a little, Cal Halliday's a little overrated. Jacoby Windman, I'm pretty sure he'll be drafted. I think he's maybe a late round pick. He's got a lot of upside. One I'm kind of confused about is Xavier Henderson. He's been gone for a year or so I don't know what's going on there. Why would he be a draft prospect? I don't know. I see Aaron Brule and then Tumisei Adeleye, who was just a dumpster fire since he's been at Texas A&M and then came to state and then was dismissed from the team. So I don't know how accurate this list is on NFLDraftBuzz.com, but that's a short list of state guys. I would just say keep your eyes on Jacoby Windman and maybe Berger if he's actually there. He didn't play a lot last year. I think he was a little banged up, but he's a decent running back. But Jacoby Windman would be the guy I keep my eyes on. He's a stand-up edge rusher slash linebacker. He did pretty good a couple years ago for us and just got banged up last year. But interested to see for UKB where Corum goes. And JJ, I think JJ could just be a nice backup for a couple of years, and maybe he gets a starting role and takes it. He could be like a Brock Purdy type, where you have a really good team around him, and he does a hell of a job. But Brock Purdy's Mr. Irrelevant, so that's also a good story. But interested to see how the draft pans out. But I'm also interested to watch the Lions. My fandom for State is 10 times more, but it's good to see those diehard
Yeah.
Lions fans get what they did. The Lions deserve a break. The city of Detroit deserves a break, so it's cool to see. I kind of root for Hutch now. He's a Detroit Lion. Obviously, he's a Michigan guy, but that's cool to see. And Dan Campbell is just a great coach. And you love rooting for a Detroit team and seeing them do well. So shout out to all our Lions fans out there. We are fans, but I think we both have way more bought into our college teams. But it's cool to see what the Lions are doing right now. Kind of to wrap up the draft NFL talk here.
Yeah, and I agree with your Corum talk there. I think by the end of the year, he finally was fully over his ACL tear because you got to remember he tore that in the second to last game. So we're like a year
A
and
year, a
two
couple
months,
months. Yeah.
yeah, following it, and he finally gets time to fully recover and take some time to rest
Those
and
three
get back in
weeks
the gym.
between those games is probably huge for guys. I mean, look at
Yeah.
Edwards. Give me 3 carries and I'll see you later.
Yeah, see you next year. And I do agree. I wonder if he'll lose some weight heading into the NFL, kind of just thin down a little bit to get some of that speed back because he isn't going to be asked to be a number one back probably anywhere he goes. But he's definitely a good in between the tackle runner. And when guys have him one on one, he makes a miss. He runs through arm tackles. So it'll be great to kind of see how the whole entire draft process comes out. Just to clarify, we're not going to talk about the draft in like this is my draft review, or at least I'm not
No,
anticipating doing
not
that.
at
I'm
all.
just going to kind of overall look and see how we kind of feel on some things.
Should we dress him
And
as Mel
just
Kiper and
just
Todd
vibes and what
McShay?
we know from college.
Todd,
I
Todd,
think
Todd.
I think the one thing too is NFL fans literally don't watch college football, and so they get a lot of their information from having never watched games during the season. So they
That
just
blows my
like
mind.
watch draft previews and they just watch, oh, this is what one guy's really high on. And like an example is like there's guys that are like ranked really high. Like Drake May, I his game he has all of the tools, which is why he'll probably go 2 or 3. But at times he just like
Like, do we think Caleb Williams goes to the Bears?
yeah,
There's a
I
lot of
mean
thoughts
that's
out
the
there,
thing is
KB.
like
It's a
he
can of
what
worms.
offense does he play in? He's gonna spend his whole first year and it's gonna look like Justin Fields because you're not running an offense with Lincoln Riley. I mean, all of the guys that Lincoln Riley has put into the NFL, they haven't really hit the ground running because they don't read defenses. You run 30 RPOs. If that guy sinks down, you throw it over him. If he stays back, you throw it in front of him. That's half of their offense.
Yeah.
Now, is that
Baker's
good? Does
doing
that
good
make you a
now.
very? Does that? Yeah. I mean,
Couple years.
Baker's a different story.
Yeah.
But I think overall, I actually broke this down. Since 2016, I broke down quarterbacks. I was bored, and I just kind
Nerd.
of broke. I broke down. I said who hit, and by hit I mean like they signed their second contract, like they played well. You have some Dak Prescotts, but like before first round or before third round versus after third round is like 6% hit after the third round, which means like 2 guys have hit in like the 50 draft picks or whatever, and then before that though before the third round, it's like a 60% hit rate. You're going to find gems round 1 through 3.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, the first round is the most productive. I think it's like close to 70%. I'll pull up the numbers and print the sheet off so we can talk about it next time. But
Mm-hmm.
it's just like there's so many guys you can find in the drafts, and there's hidden gems that college football fans think of every year and that we know are absolute dogs. And then there's guys that are getting pushed media wise. And it's just going to be fun to kind of see how we contrast with maybe the point of view going
Hmm.
forward.
Yeah, I mean, obviously I'm a homer, but I knew Jaden Reed was being really good. He's not tall, but man, he can catch a contested ball, and he's pretty quick, and he had a hell of a year for the Packers. So there's guys like that that we both know, obviously, for on our teams. And there's little guys out there that you find, and NFL coaches will find talent no matter what. I know there's a guy, it's like he's a legendary player from the Vikings. He was a D end or something, and he went to some no-name college and was an absolute beast in the NFL. So guys will find talent, and we will kind of know some hidden gems here and there that we can always talk about. But I think with all that news about coaching, the NAL, and Ohio State loading up, and our draft thoughts, KB, I think that's pretty damn good. 45 minutes we just talked about. So
Absolutely.
I appreciate catching up with you and talking to whoever's listening. We appreciate you. Please like and share whatever you do. We'll be on YouTube and Spotify per usual Friday. But KB, good to talk to you again. And as always, go green.
Go blue.
Thanks, guys. Talk to you probably soon.